They say your home is the one place you should always feel safe. But the night someone broke into mine, I learned that safety is just an illusion. This is a true story. And even now, years later, I still sleep with the lights on. It was a Friday night in late autumn. I was alone, curled up on the couch, half asleep in front of the TV. My parents were out of town, and the house was unusually quiet. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the branches against my window. I remember pulling the blanket tighter, convincing myself it was just another ordinary night. Around midnight, I heard it. The faintest clicking noise near the front door. At first, I brushed it off as the wind. But then came a slow, deliberate turn of the doorknob. My stomach dropped. Someone was trying to get in. I froze, every muscle in my body tense. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The knob rattled harder. Then, silence. Minutes passed. I sat there, heart hammering in my chest, convincing myself it was over. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe the lock held and whoever it was had gone away. I forced myself to breathe. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone. That's when I heard it again. This time not at the door, but inside. The unmistakable creak of a floorboard. Someone was in my house. I barely had time to react before a shadow glided across the hallway. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. The line rang and rang, but before the operator answered, the call dropped. My phone had died. Panicked, I ran upstairs and slipped into my bedroom closet, crouching low behind a row of clothes. I could hear footsteps now, heavy and deliberate, making their way up the staircase. Every creak of the wood seemed to echo through my skull. The floorboards outside my door groaned. My breath caught. The doorknob turned with an agonizingly slow click. He was in. The air grew heavy, thick with a presence that was pure menace. Peeking through the thin slats of the closet door, my world shrank to a terrifying slit. I saw him, a towering silhouette against the faint moonlight. He was dressed in dark clothes, his hands covered in black leather gloves. As he moved, something metallic glinted at his hip. It was long and thin, catching the light like a predator's tooth. My mind screamed, "Knife!" but my body was frozen. He stood perfectly still in the center of the room, a dark statue of impending violence. His head turned slowly, methodically, scanning every corner. This wasn't a search for valuables, this was a hunt. His breathing filled the silence, a harsh, raspy sound that echoed the frantic pounding in my own chest. Each breath was a countdown. I felt like a cornered animal, my hiding spot feeling flimsier with every second his unseen eyes swept my hiding place. A scream was building in my lungs, but I knew any sound would be my death sentence. I brought my sweatshirt sleeve to my mouth and bit down, hard. The rough cotton scraped against my teeth, the taste of dust and fear filling my mouth. I focused on the pain, anything to distract from my heart hammering against my ribs, so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then he moved. His boots made soft thuds on the hardwood, each step a hammer blow to my sanity. He was coming directly towards me. The world ceased to exist. There was only the approaching sound, the growing shadow. He stopped directly in front of the door. The silence that followed was absolute. He was listening for the tiny gasp, the hitched breath. A distorted, shadowy face pressed against the slats, a nightmarish blur just inches from my own. I saw his gloved hand rise slowly, reaching for the closet handle. The leather creaked as his fingers wrapped around the cold brass knob. This was it. My eyes squeezed shut. And then, a deafening crash erupted from downstairs, shattering glass and splintering wood. The man flinched, his head snapping towards the door. A low curse escaped his lips. He hesitated for a second before turning abruptly. He ran, his heavy footsteps pounding down the stairs, a chaotic echo of his terrifyingly silent arrival. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, then a flicker of color. Red, blue. Through the window, flashing blue lights illuminated the driveway. A wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled my knees washed over me. My neighbor had seen the man slip inside my house and called the police. She'd seen the shadow in the twilight and made the call that saved my life. The distant sirens finally died, replaced by the slam of car doors and the crunch of boots on gravel. Help was here. Then came the crash, a violent splintering explosion of sound from downstairs. For a terrifying second, I thought he'd finally broken through, that he was coming for me. But the noise was followed by shouts, deep, authoritative voices yelling, "Police! Show me your hands!" The realization dawned. The crash I heard was them forcing the door open. My last line of defense breached not by a monster, but by my saviors. I could hear their heavy, purposeful footsteps on the hardwood floors, a sound that was both terrifying and profoundly reassuring as they began to clear the house. They moved room by room. I held my breath as their footsteps stopped outside my bedroom. A beam of light sliced under the closet door before the handle turned. An officer found me huddled in the corner. The house was declared clear, but by the time the officers searched it, the intruder was gone, vanished. They found muddy boot prints near the back door, a clear path of escape, and on the floor nearby, a small leather roll, unspooled to reveal a set of professional-grade lockpicking tools. He hadn't smashed his way in. He'd let himself in. He had escaped, but he'd been right there. The officer showed me another partial print on the carpet just outside my closet door. He had stood there, listening. He must have heard my frantic, shallow breaths. He had been right there, just inches away from me, separated by a thin piece of wood. He knew I was there, and he chose to walk away. The question that will forever haunt me isn't what he would have done if he'd opened that door, but the terrifying, unknowable reason why he didn't. That night changed me forever. It didn't just leave a scar on my memory, it fundamentally rewired my perception of the world. The place I once called a sanctuary, my home, now feels like a fragile shell. Every shadow seems to stretch a little too long. Every creak of the house settling at night sounds like an intruder's careful step. The feeling of safety is a luxury I can no longer afford. It was stolen from me, replaced by a constant, humming anxiety that lives just beneath my skin. I never walk into my house without checking every lock twice, my fingers tracing the cold metal, praying it holds. I never sleep without my phone fully charged and resting on my chest, a digital lifeline in the suffocating darkness. I check closets I know are empty. I peer under the bed, my heart pounding in my ears. I can't stand complete silence anymore. It feels like an invitation for something to break it, and I never forget the sound of his footsteps in the dark. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence, a heavy, deliberate weight on the floorboards that announced the end of my world. That sound is burned into my brain. Sometimes late at night I think I hear it again, the slow, patient tread in the hallway, and my blood runs cold. If you think you're safe, think again. We build our lives behind these walls, believing they can protect us. But evil doesn't need an invitation. It looks for an unlocked door, a moment of complacency. It could happen to anyone. You tell yourself it could never happen to you. I told myself that too. The stories we share here are cautionary tales. If you want more real stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Nightmare Archives. We bring you these true accounts to arm you with awareness, because the next true horror might be closer than you think. It could be unfolding right now, in a house just like yours. Stay vigilant, and never assume you're safe alone.